Thomas Becket. Thomas Becket, the 29th of December 1170, was Archbishop of Canterbury from 1162 until his murder in 1170. He is venerated as a saint and martyr by both the Catholic Church and the Anglican Communion. He engaged in conflict with Henry II, King of England, over the rights and privileges of the Church, and was murdered by followers of the king in Canterbury Cathedral. Soon after his death, he was canonized by Pope Alexander III. Sources. The main sources for the life of Becket are a number of biographies that were written by contemporaries. A few of these documents are by unknown writers, although traditional historiography has given them names. The known biographers are John of Salisbury, Edward Grimm, Benedict of Peterborough, William of Canterbury, William Fitzstephen, Gurns of Pont St. Maxence, Robert of Cricklade, Alan of Tewkesbury, Bennet of St. Albans, and Herbert of Bosham. The other biographers, who remain anonymous, are generally given the pseudonyms of Anonymous I, Anonymous II, and Anonymous III. Besides these accounts, there are also two other accounts that are likely contemporary that appear in the Quadrilogus II and the Thomas Saga Archbiskups. Besides these biographies, there is also the mention of the events of Becket's life in the chroniclers of the time. These include Robert of Torunus' work, Roger of Howden's Gesta Regis, Henry Chiusecundi and Chronica, Ralph d'Iceto's works, William of Newburgh's Historia Rerum, and Gervase of Canterbury's works. Early life. Stained glass window of Thomas Becket in Canterbury Cathedral. Becket was born about 1119, or in 1120 according to later tradition. He was born in Cheapside, London, on the 21st of December, which was the feast day of St. Thomas the Apostle. He was the son of Gilbert Becket and Gilbert's wife Matilda. Gilbert's father was from Thierville in the lordship of Brion in Normandy, and was either a small landowner or a petty knight. Matilda was also of Norman ancestry, and her family may have originated near Caen. Gilbert was perhaps related to Theobald of Bec, whose family also was from Thierville. Gilbert began his life as a merchant, perhaps as a textile merchant, but by the 1120s he was living in London and was a property owner, living on the rental income from his properties. He also served as the sheriff of the city. At some point, they were buried in Old St. Paul's Cathedral. One of Becket's father's wealthy friends, Richard de Lagle, often invited Thomas to his estates in Sussex, where Becket was exposed to hunting and hawking. According to Grimm, Becket learned much from Richard, who was later a signatory of the constitutions of Clarendon against Thomas. Beginning when he was 10, Becket was sent as a student to Merton Priory in England, and later attended a grammar school in London, perhaps the one at St. Paul's Cathedral. He did not study any subjects beyond the trivium and quadrivium at these schools. Later, he spent about a year in Paris around age 20. He did not, however, study canon or civil law at this time, and his Latin skill always remained somewhat rudimentary. Some time after Becket began his schooling, Gilbert Becket suffered financial reverses, and the younger Becket was forced to earn a living as a clerk. Gilbert first secured a place for his son in the business of a relative, Osbert Huet de Neers, and then later Becket acquired a position in the household of Theobald of Bec, by now the Archbishop of Canterbury. Theobald entrusted him with several important missions to Rome and also sent him to Bologna and Auxerre to study canon law. Theobald in 1154 named Becket Archdeacon of Canterbury, and other ecclesiastical offices included a number of benefices, prebends at Lincoln Cathedral and St. Paul's Cathedral, and the office of Provost of Beverley. His efficiency in those posts led to Theobald recommending him to King Henry II for the vacant post. of Lord Chancellor, to which Becket was appointed in January 1155. As Chancellor, Becket enforced the king's traditional sources of revenue that were exacted from all landowners, including churches and bishoprics. King Henry even sent his son Henry to live in Becket's household, it being the custom then for noble children to be fostered out to other noble houses. The younger Henry was reported to have said Becket showed him more fatherly love in a day than his father did for his entire life. Primacy. Becket was nominated as Archbishop of Canterbury in 1162, several months after the death of Theobald. His election was confirmed on 23 May 1162 by a royal council of bishops and noblemen. Henry may have hoped that Becket would continue to put the royal government first, rather than the church. However, the famous transformation of Becket into an ascetic occurred. At this time, Becket was ordained a priest on 2 June 1162 at Canterbury, and on 3 June 1162 was consecrated as Archbishop by Henry of Blois, the Bishop of Winchester, and the other suffragan bishops of Canterbury. A rift grew between Henry and Becket as the new archbishop resigned his chancellorship and sought to recover and extend the rights of the archbishopric. This led to a series of conflicts with the king, including that over the jurisdiction of secular courts over English clergymen, which accelerated antipathy between Becket and the king. Attempts by Henry to influence the other bishops against Becket began in Westminster in October 1163, where the king sought approval of the traditional rights of the royal government in regard to the church. This led to Clarendon, where Becket was officially asked to agree to the king's right to face political repercussions. Constitutions of Clarendon. King Henry II presided over the assemblies of most of the higher English clergy at Clarendon Palace on 30 January 1164. In 16 constitutions, he sought less clerical independence and a weaker connection with Rome. He employed all his skills to induce their consent and was apparently successful with all but Becket. Finally, even Becket expressed his willingness to agree to the substance of the constitutions of Clarendon, but he still refused to formally sign the documents. Henry summoned Becket to appear before a great council at Northampton Castle on 8 October 1164, to answer allegations of contempt of royal authority and malfeasance in the Chancellor's office. Convicted on the charges, Becket stormed out of the trial and fled to the continent. Henry pursued the fugitive archbishop with a series of edicts, targeting Becket as well as all of Becket's friends and supporters, but King Louis VII of France offered Becket protection. He spent nearly 2 years in the Cistercian Abbey of Pontigny, until Henry's threats against the order obliged him to return to Sens. Becket fought back by threatening excommunication and interdict against the king and bishops and the kingdom, but Pope Alexander III, though sympathizing with him in theory, favored a more diplomatic approach. Papal legates were sent in 1167 with authority to act as arbitrators of the abbot of Arbroath, showing the murder of Becket. Arbroath Abbey was founded 8 years after the death of St. Thomas, and dedicated to him. It became the wealthiest abbey in Scotland. In 1170, Alexander sent delegates to impose a solution to the dispute. At that point, Henry offered a compromise that would allow Thomas to return to England from exile. Assassination. In June 1170, Roger de Pontla-l'Evêque, the Archbishop of York, along with Gilbert Folio, the Bishop of London, and Jocelyn de Beauharn, the Bishop of Salisbury, crowned the heir apparent, Henry the young king, at York. This was a breach of Canterbury's privilege of coronation, and in November 1170 Becket excommunicated all three. while the 3 clergymen fled to the king in Normandy. Becket continued to excommunicate his opponents in the church, the news of which also reached Henry II, Henry the young king's father, made about 1190 to 1200, one of about 45 surviving examples upon hearing reports of Becket's actions. Henry is said to have uttered words that were interpreted by his men as wishing Becket killed. The king's exact words are in doubt and several versions have been reported. The most commonly quoted, as handed down by oral tradition, is, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" But according to historian Simon Sharma, this is incorrect. He accepts the account of the contemporary biographer Edward Grimm, writing in Latin, who gives us, "What miserable drones and traitors have I nourished and brought up in my household, who let the Lord be treated with such shameful contempt by a low-born cleric." Many variations have found their way into popular culture. Whatever Henry said, it was interpreted as a royal command, and 4 knights, Reginald Fitzurse, Hugh de Morville, William de Tracy and Richard le Breton, set out to confront the Archbishop of Canterbury. On the 29th of December 1170 they arrived at Canterbury. According to accounts left by the monk Gervase of Canterbury and eyewitness Edward Grimm, they placed their weapons under a tree outside the cathedral, and hid their mail armor under cloaks before entering to challenge Becket. The knights informed Becket he was to go to Winchester to give an account of his actions, but Becket refused. It was not until Becket refused their demands to submit to the king's will that they retrieved their weapons and rushed back inside for the killing. Becket, meanwhile, proceeded to the main hall for vespers. The 4 knights, wielding drawn swords, caught up with him in a spot near a door to the monastic cloister, the stairs into the crypt, and the stairs leading up into the choir of the cathedral, where the monks were chanting vespers. Several contemporary accounts of what happened next exist. Of particular note is that of Edward Grimm, who was wounded in the attack. This is part of the account from Edward Grimm. Another account can be found in Expugnatio Hibernica written by Gerald of Wales. After Becket's death. Following Becket's death, the monks prepared his body for burial. According to some accounts, it was discovered that Becket had worn a hair shirt under his archbishop's garments, a sign of penance. Soon after, the faithful throughout Europe began venerating Becket as a martyr, and on the 21st of February 1173, little more than 2 years after his death, he was canonized by Pope Alexander III in St. Peter's Church in Segni. In 1173, Becket's sister Mary was appointed as abbess of Barking Abbey as reparation for the murder of her brother. On the 12th of July 1174, in the midst of the revolt of 1173–74, Henry humbled himself with public penance at Becket's tomb as well as at the Church of St. Dunstan's, which became one of the most popular pilgrimage sites in England. Becket's assassins fled north to Knaresborough Castle, which was held by Hugh de Morville, where they remained for about a year. De Morville held property in Cumbria, and this may also have provided a convenient bolt hole, as the men prepared for a longer stay in the separate Kingdom of Scotland. They were not arrested, and neither did Henry confiscate the lands, but he failed to help them when they were sought his advice in August 1171. Pope Alexander excommunicated all 4. Seeking forgiveness, the assassins traveled to Rome, and were ordered by the Pope to serve as knights in the Holy Lands for a period of 14 years. This last also inspired Knights of St. Thomas, incorporated in 1191 at Acre, and which was to be modelled on the Teutonic Knights. It is the only military order native to England, like the Gilbertine order being the only monastic order native to England as well. Nevertheless, Henry VIII dissolved both of these English institutions upon passing the Reformation, rather than merging foreign orders with them and nationalizing them as elements of the Protestant Church of England. The monks were afraid that Becket's body might be stolen. To prevent this, Becket's remains were placed beneath the floor of the eastern crypt of the cathedral. A stone cover was placed over the burial place with 2 holes, where pilgrims could insert their heads and kiss the tomb. This arrangement is illustrated in the miracle windows of the Trinity Chapel. A guard chamber had a clear view of the grave. In 1220, Becket's bones were moved to a new gold-plated and bejeweled shrine behind the high altar in the Trinity Chapel. The shrine was supported by 3 pairs of pillars, placed on a raised platform with 3 steps. This is also illustrated in one of the miracle windows. Canterbury, because of its religious history, had always seen many pilgrims, and after the death of Thomas Becket their numbers rose rapidly. Cult in the Middle Ages. Candle marking the former spot of the shrine of Thomas Becket. At Canterbury Cathedral in Scotland, King William the Lion ordered the building of Arbroath Abbey in 1178. On completion in 1197, the new foundation was dedicated to Becket, whom the king had known personally while at the English court as a young man. On the 7th of July 1220, in the 50th Jubilee year of his death, Becket's remains were moved from this first tomb to a shrine in the recently completed Trinity Chapel. This active translation was one of the great symbolic events in the life of the medieval English Church, and was attended by King Henry III, the papal legate, the Archbishop of Canterbury Stephen Langton, and large numbers of dignitaries and magnates secular and ecclesiastical. Thus a major new feast day was instituted, commemorating the translation, that was celebrated each July almost everywhere in England and also in many French churches. This feast was suppressed in 1536 at the Reformation. The shrine stood until it was destroyed in 1538, during the dissolution of the monasteries, on orders from King Henry VIII. The king also destroyed Becket's bones and ordered that all mention of his name be obliterated. As the scion of the leading mercantile dynasty of later centuries, Mercers, Becket was very much regarded as a Londoner by the citizens, and was adopted as London's co-patron saint with St. Paul. Both their images appeared on the seals of the city and of the Lord Mayor. The Bridge House estate seal used only the image of Becket, while the reverse featured a depiction of his martyrdom. Local legends regarding Becket arose after his canonization. Though they are typical hagiographical stories, they also display Becket's particular gruffness. Becket's Well, in Otford, Kent, is said to have been created after Becket had become displeased with the taste of the local water. 2 springs of clear water are said to have bubbled up after he struck the ground with his crosier. The absence of nightingales in Otford is also ascribed to Becket, who is said to have been so disturbed in his devotions by the song of a nightingale that he commanded that none should sing in the town ever again. In the town of Strood, also in Kent, Becket is said to have caused the inhabitants of the town and their descendants to be born with tails. The men of Strood had sided with the king in his struggles against the archbishop, and to demonstrate their support, had cut off the tail of Becket's horse as he passed through the town. The saint's fame quickly spread throughout the Norman world. The first holy image of Becket is thought to be a mosaic icon still visible in Monreale Cathedral, in Sicily, created shortly after his death. Becket's cousins obtained refuge at the Sicilian court during his exile, and King William II of Sicily wed a daughter of Henry II. The principal church of the Sicilian city of Marsala is dedicated to St. Thomas Becket. Over 45 medieval chasse reliquaries decorated in champlevé enamel showing similar scenes from Becket's life survive, including the Becket casket, originally constructed to hold relics of the saint at Peterborough Abbey, and now housed in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Legacy. Oxfordshire combines the arms of Thomas Becket with a lion from the coat of arms of England. In 1170, the King of Castile Alfonso VIII married Eleanor Plantagenet, the second daughter of Henry II. She honoured Becket with a wall painting of his martyrdom that is preserved in the Church of San Nicolas de Soria in Spain. The assassination of Becket made an impact in Spain. Within 5 years after his death, there was a church in Salamanca named after him, Iglesia de Santo Tomás Canturiense. Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales is set in a company of pilgrims on their way from Southwark to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket in Canterbury Cathedral. The story of Becket's life became a popular theme for the medieval Nottingham alabaster carvers. One set of Becket panels is displayed in the Victoria and Albert Museum. The coat of arms of Canterbury, officially registered in 1619, but dating back to at least 1380, is based on the alleged arms of Thomas Becket, argent 3 Cornish choughs, proper 2 and 1, accompanied by a chief in red with a gold lion from the Royal Arms of England. In 1884, England's poet laureate Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote Becket, a play about Thomas Becket and Henry II. Henry Irving produced the play after Tennyson's death, and was celebrated in the title role. Modern works based on the story of Thomas Becket include T.S. Eliot's play Murder in the Cathedral, Jean Anna Earl's play Becket, which was made into a movie with the same title, and Paul Webb's play 4 Nights in Knaresborough. Webb has adapted his play for the screen and sold the rights to Harvey and Bob Weinstein. The struggle between churches and king's power is a theme of Ken Follett's novel The Pillars of the Earth, of which one of the last scenes features the murder of Thomas Becket. Medieval mystery author Jerry Westerson recreated Chaucer's Pilgrims and their time in Canterbury, along with murder and the theft of Becket's bones in her 4th novel in the Crispin Guest series Troubled Bones. The Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, a non-profit, non-partisan, interfaith, legal, and educational institute dedicated to protecting the free expression of all religious traditions, took its inspiration and namesake from Thomas Becket. In a 2006 poll by BBC History magazine for Worst Britain of the Previous Millennium, Becket came second behind Jack the Ripper. The poll was dismissed as stuffed in The Guardian, and the result disputed by Anglicans and Catholics. Historians had nominated one person per century, and for the 12th century John Hudson chose Becket for being greedy, hypocritical, founder of gesture politics, and master of the soundbite. The magazine editor suggested most other nominees were too obscure for voters, as well as saying, in an era when thumbscrews, racks and burning alive could be passed off as robust law and order, being guilty of gesture politics might seem something of a minor charge. There are many churches named after Thomas Becket in Great Britain, including St. Thomas of Canterbury Church, Canterbury, Church of St. Thomas the Martyr, Monmouth, St. Thomas of Becket Church, Pensford, St. Thomas of Becket Church, Widcombe, Church of St. Thomas of Becket, Capel, St. Thomas the Martyr, Bristol and St. Thomas the Martyr's Church, Oxford, and in France, including Église St. Thomas de Canterbury at Mont Saint-Aignan, Église St. Thomas Becket at Gravelines, Église St. Thomas Becket at Avrilleux, Église St. Thomas Becket at Benedet, etc. There are many schools named after Thomas Becket in Great Britain, including Becket Keys Church of England School and St. Thomas of Canterbury Church of England Aided Junior School. There are a section of the city of Esztergom, Hungary named St. Thomas, on a hill called Szent Tamás, both named after Thomas Becket. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.